G'day everyone and welcome to another episode of Us in the virUS. Today I've got a friend of mine, Jacob Cunningham, with us. He's the lead pastor of Peninsula City Church. Jacob, how are you?
Very good. Thanks for inviting me on, Luke. It's great to be here with you.
No worries, mate. It's great to catch up with you, even if it is over Zoom.
Feels a little weird, doesn't it? It'd be much nicer to catch up face to face, but hey, these are the times that we're living in, so we do what we can. And a big hello to all the Follow Baptist family as well. Thank you for letting me come and have a chat to your pastor today.
Yeah, and vice versa to all the Penn CC crew. No, it's really interesting world, mate. I saw you at the Global Leadership Summit, and obviously we weren't anticipating anything like what we're going through right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think on that day we said, we must catch up, and it's taken a pandemic for us to actually do it. But hey, better late than never, and
Yeah,
at least we can do it online. Hey.
no doubt about it. And so this is all really about having discussion about questions in real time and questions that people are probably asking in the midst of a crisis. And I thought it'd be good to talk to you just a little bit about change. I don't know about you,
Sure.
but I've noticed in life that there's kind of a spectrum for change. You've got some people at one end of the spectrum that, they are very anti-change and any change will kind of rattle them. Then you've got people at the other end, which I'm a little bit more like this, where I actually like change. And so change is exciting and it brings new opportunities. And then there's everyone in between those two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
This change is something that none of us could have avoided. It's not like we had a choice. No, I'm not going to take COVID-19 right now. It's not convenient. I'm not looking for change this year. It was kind of like we're all in the same boat. And it's been really rapid change, like it's not like we just got used to this over a few months. It was like one day, there's something happening over in China and then the next few days later we're all in lockdown. So
Totally.
people's lives have been turned upside down and it's really difficult. So I thought I just wanted to ask you a little bit about how's COVID-19 changed you personally so far?
Yeah. Well, as I just said, I'm talking to you online, which I don't think we've ever done before, so that's a change. But I must say, I probably fit into a similar category to you, Luke, where I try to embrace change in my life. I'm not sort of adverse to change, so I feel like we need to still look for the opportunities in this. But I guess how it's affected me, how it's changed me personally. Well, I'm definitely washing my hands more than I probably ever have before. So that might be a good thing. Maybe that's a change that we continue post this pandemic. But I was actually reflecting on this. It's funny you ask a couple of days ago. I think for me, this change has really teaching me about margins in my life. And the reality is, there's a lot of stuff we can't do right now. And like you just said then, we're kind of forced into a new way of living. And this is not a great trait of mine, but I can tend to burn the candle at both ends. I can kind of run pretty hard. So I think for me, I'm really learning that, whilst I probably can't be doing everything I'd like to be doing right now, maybe there's a positive in that. And maybe, even God's trying to show me that I actually need to introduce a bit more margin into my life. And I was just reflecting even this morning on John chapter 15, which is this beautiful chapter. And Jesus says that, if a man remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, he can do nothing. And I think for me, it's learning in this season to embrace the change, to use it as an opportunity to remain in him, remain in Christ, and really work on trying to create some margin in my life. So I guess I'm looking at that as a real positive that hopefully I can continue to live out after this pandemic finishes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw a meme the other day about being stuck at home, and it was something like, "I'm not stuck at home. I get to stay home with my family." And
Yeah, it's great.
it depends on the way you look at it. I think what's happened in this kind of lockdown situation is it's changed our relationships. And so I was wondering for you how it's changed your relationship with your family, and then also how's it affected your friendships as well outside of your immediate family.
Yeah. Um, Look, I think from a friendship perspective, we've just done as best we can to remain engaged online. I've definitely upped the amount of phone calls I've made and text messages I've sent in the last week or so. Probably though, the kids I'd say have been hit harder than my wife Camille and I have been. We've got two kids, as you know, 4 and 1, and I think for them little changes. For example, they haven't been able to see their grandparents, which normally happens on a weekly basis.
Mm.
I've had to connect just online on FaceTime or phone calls or whatever. So that's obviously been a definite change for them. And I think even for them, part of our daily routine is to head out to the park at least once a day. So the fact, I guess, now that the parks are closed down, you can't visit parks. That's been a bit of a challenge. So we've just had to adapt how we operate, I suppose. And whilst we can still get out and do some exercise, we're making sure that we really prioritise that for the kids, to get them out on, whether it's a pram or on a bike or something, just get them outside and try as much as possible to keep that normality of routine in how we live.
Yeah, I think in our household, me just being home at night, it's been a real big change. You're out a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
nights, and there's things to be done. And I guess the kids are used to me coming in. I try to have dinner at home every night, but then sort of rushing out to a meeting about this or that.
yeah,
And just
yeah,
being at
yeah.
home has been really good to have quality time. We've been doing a lot of family games after dinner and stuff like that. I've also
Fantastic.
found, though, that the family have been a little bit more irritable with each other than usual,
Yeah,
because we just
yeah,
can't get out. You can't go and see your friends,
yeah,
get some,
yeah.
time with other people. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Again, with our kids, they're only still fairly young, and we live in a fairly small house. So at times it feels like we're kind of living on top of each other. So right now, I think we're doing all right. But ask me that question again in 3 or 4 months, and I might I might have a different answer for you, Luke.
yeah, I think we might go a little bit crazy. We'll have to wait and see. So, what would you say to people, particularly people who struggle with change? How do we go about staying steady when everything else around us is changing, and there's so much, I guess, uncertainty about what it's all going to look like when it's pieced
Yeah,
back together?
yeah, yeah. Um, I think something like, as believers in Christ, as Christians, I think one of the greatest truths that we really have to hang on to now is the nature of God. God in and of himself is unchanging. He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. The interesting thing, though, is that often how he operates, what he actually does, that's always changing. But he himself is never changing. So I think as a believer, we have to find this inner strength. We have to find this inner hope, this joy, this rock that we talk about, Jesus being the anchor of our soul. Now is the time to actually live that out. If we're declaring that we have a faith in Jesus, I can't think of much better time to actually act on that and activate that faith than the season that we're currently living in now. So I hope that doesn't seem like a cliche answer, Luke, but really I think this is the time for us as believers to shine. We are the church, and we're called out, I believe, for such a time as this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one thing to say that God's your foundation, He's your rock, but in times like this, if we're panicking like everyone else, and people think,
Yeah,
well, what's
yeah,
faith all about? It makes no difference. But I think if we become a non-anxious presence when everyone else is anxious, we do
yeah,
stand out. We do become like a city on a hill, and people go, there's something different
yeah,
about those people. They're going through the same
yeah,
things we're all going through, but there's just a
yeah.
calmness, there's a trust, there's a confidence and a hope that perhaps they
Mm,
don't feel in that moment. So I think,
yeah,
yeah, that's where, people say, oh, God's just a crutch. Well, for me, he's more than a crutch. I can't even take my next breath without him. Like,
yeah,
he's my
exactly.
whole
Yeah,
life. And so
exactly.
in a time like this, while everything else has changed, that hasn't. Um,
Yeah,
so I can
yeah,
still trust in a God who provides my next breath, who's given me a hope for not just this life, but for all eternity. And it's an anchor that's secure
yeah,
even when the seas get a bit rough.
yeah, yeah. And I think, look, I'm sure you've been talking about this at Follow, and we certainly have at our church over the last few weeks, that, as I said before, this really is the time for us, the church. We've been reminding people that the church is not a building, the church is us, it's people. And what an amazing time to actually live out this Christian life. And I think something that I've been, I suppose, personally reflecting on is, we want to be kingdom focused people. We want to have the mindset of the kingdom, behavior of the kingdom, and culture of the kingdom. And I suppose something I've been just trying to do over the last couple of weeks. I think some of the greatest kingdom culture, if you will, is actually found in Galatians 5, the fruits of the Spirit. We know it as the fruits of the Spirit, but what better time for sons and daughters of God to rise up and actually demonstrate love, this unconditional love that Jesus requires of us to demonstrate to one another, or peace. Like you said there, there's a lot of people who just can't find peace in this current climate, but we have the Prince of Peace, Jesus, living on the inside of it. So we need to be the people that can actually rise up and demonstrate how we can be peaceful through this time. The fruits of the Spirit are amazing. Patience. Everyone needs to be demonstrating patience, especially down the toilet roll aisles at the supermarkets. You could go on: kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. I think this is the time for us to really rise up and demonstrate that. So I guess that's something that I'm, personally trying to really focus on and increase the levels and the ways of how we do that.
Yeah, that's really helpful, mate. That's good stuff. So obviously, whenever this thing finishes, we don't know when it's going to end, but things will look different on the other side. I think we're going to a whole new world, and it's going to be very different for people in terms of career and maybe even priorities and rhythms of life.
Yeah, totally.
And for you,
totally.
what opportunities do you see in your own life through this pandemic, and what changes would you like to remain on the other side?
I think a little one for me personally is around fitness. It's been great. Sometimes I struggle. As I said, I tend to cram way too much into my schedule, and sometimes exercise gets kind of booted out. But yeah, the last few days I've been able to actually just go out for a run. And that's good. That's good for me. That's good for me physically. It's good for me emotionally, spiritually. So little things like that. Now that may seem a little bit insignificant, but for me that's actually really important that I increase and then include that exercise component moving forward. And I think we actually had a conversation with some of our team earlier today, just around how this is going to affect how we sort of do church moving forwards. And there's so many positives I think that will come from this for not just one church, not just our church, but for the church. Because I'm sure you've been the same as us. We've been really scrambling in the last couple of weeks to just get everything online, and that's going to set us up really well for the future. I think we can continue having a greater presence, a greater impact online moving forward. Even again this morning we were talking about how we sort of structured our pastoral care, and rather than maybe resting, I guess, the weight of pastoral care on a few pastors, we've really tried to broaden that out, and once again, just empower people to stand up and release pastoral care in whatever way they can. So I think, I just mentioned that because we were sort of literally talking about that earlier this morning as a team. What are some of the blessings? What are some of the positives that are birthed out of a time of difficulty right now that we can actually see the positive with, and then make sure we continue that on the other side of this?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the rhythms of life. We get so crazy busy, and you don't want to, but you just end up being there, whether it's you individually or at church. And for me, it's been a good chance just with enforced rest we've been talking about it at church as well, but to really get in a new rhythm of seeing rest as important, and maybe reevaluate those things we thought were absolutely critical. Are they that important now that we're not doing them? And on the other side, rather than just rushing back into the old schedule and the old busyness of what we were doing, really reassessing that and going, what are the important things? And how can we live a healthier rhythm of life so that we're refreshed? I really think that Jesus actually worked from rest. We often just rest from exhaustion. And there's a big difference in those two things. And so I think we're learning a lot about that at the moment. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Hey, mate, I really appreciate catching up with you today and the time you've spent chatting to us. And hopefully this is helpful for people as well as they navigate, life, what it is now and what it will be on the other side. So thanks a lot for taking the time to chat, mate, and we'll catch up soon.
Pleasure. Yeah, pleasure. Thanks so much. Great to see you, Luke.
No worries. Thanks a lot, mate.
Bye.
See ya.